I can heal you. And you're just gonna fix what you've done? I promise. No tricks? Everything just goes back to normal? I absolutely promise. And then we're just okay? I can just walk? I won't take revenge on anyone. As President of the United States of America, this is my vow to you. And to date, I have never broken any vow I have ever made to anyone. I believe you. I believe you 100%, Mr. President. But hand me that gun, and I'll believe you 101. My heart and actions are utterly unclouded. They are all those of justice now.
With no evidence of a soul, human death is no different than totaling a car. When one system fails, the other systems begin to fail too. Resurrection would require all systems being restored in sync. It's the most dire threat to everything we care about, and there won't be a fix in our lifetime. It's the most profound insecurity we all share, so why is it always represented by an integer, what goes down? HP is a convenience for game purposes. Combating bodily functions is obfuscated, confusing, disturbing, and unfun, so this is simply better in most cases. One-on-one combat treats health points like points, where it might as well be a first to something. Instead of scoring, you take numbers away. How different is a headshot from a three-pointer? Over time, we've run into issues with this minimalism, though. There are life leads, stun locks, timeouts, and lane play. If the customer wants entertainment, the player wants victory, and both at the same person, then the dev wants to keep them copacetic. There's instant kills, damage sponges, stats and levels. How good's a win? How bad's a fuck up? We want to think, but I doubt we want to run DPS calcs. If my character isn't buff enough, how much grind lands me in that sweet spot, where I get an adrenaline fight with a dopamine win? There's DOT, AoE, stun, launch, status, hitbox, hurtbox, defense, armor, and feedback. Every single one is a completely divorced variable entity. You can always mix and match the highs and lows for better or worse. Not to mention, this all needs to read, both diegetically and systematically if the game needs to make sense, and in many cases, games will need player-proof workarounds to keep things flexible. In this video essay, I will break down the complexities of win and lose conditions, namely HP, and how to best communicate that information to the player in the middle of a firefight. Minimalism correlates with optimization, but insta-kills constrict creativity and tanking is free. HP gets you risk versus reward. You can take a trade and profit. However, even in the cases where the game provides you with all the parameters and a doable formula, would you bother? What's the last game you played where you know how many hits kill at all times? Do you think about divisibility or big number? There's also more state-based victory conditions. Capturing objectives and neutralizing threats cut the Gordian knot when players lack the means for another solution. A concerning amount of games feature tactical dismemberment, where you don't do a beheading, but a form of disarmament. Winning here is more visceral and fun because you get to juggle different wins. But the fight isn't climactic. Carving out a fuck nugget feels mean, and mercy killing doesn't feel nice. Not to mention the receiving end. For an example of everything at once, look at Metal Gear Solid 3. This game's central premise is that it's so intricate that just about any tactic imaginable has viability. It's very easy to forget more about this game than most people will ever know. Murder, knockouts, surrenders, and crippling all have unique utilities, but the issue then becomes conveyance. This game is jank as hell and fuck as shit, and not always to its benefit. Now I don't want to alarm you, but you've fallen into my trap. There's no video games here. You're in a math class. To the player, 50 and 99% are closer together than 50 and 49%. because they both take 2 to kill, yet 99 inflicts more dread. There's no illegal moves even by accident. The math is only necessary for strategy, but it's up to the dev to preach you some numbers for the humble player. In fragile games, 3, 10, and 12 have easy divisibility, but most games aren't so arcade nowadays. If max health is 2,520, we can divide by 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, but players won't read 840 as 33% naturally. This is where we get to life bars proper. Over the years, there's been a million ways to make a sexy graph to represent this same single value. The minimums are the maximum and the current, but for analysis, we need incoming and received damage values as well. However, all that at once makes the HUD busy, so segmented bars allow for the same information without reading a symbol, which halves mental processing. We get the quick glance that the bar provides without losing the precision of numbers. That is, so long as we keep our segment count low enough to eyeball. That means under 12. This takes too long to interpret while under fire, which means that the topological ideal of a health bar looks like this. The meaning of life is that while the bottom is unconsciousness, there's a million ways to kill a cat. Or skin it. I hope it's dead. What we got works for shootings, beatings, and bleeding out, but what if you end up drowning, drugged, or discombobulated? As games get bigger and focus more on creativity, it becomes increasingly difficult to justify why the Master Sword is preferable to carbon monoxide. The goal here isn't to be an internet smartass and or unfeeling psychopath. Lateral thinking isn't necessarily about fixing the problem wrong, but fixing the solution. A creative might want to outsmart their opponent instead of fighting them head-on. A perfectionist might want less lethal options to save the day for everyone. And of course, sadists prefer to play with their food. If disarming someone is possible, then it's not hard to imagine arming someone as well. It doesn't have to be particularly deep, maybe you just want to use a lethal weapon poorly to cover a rush, use non-lethal violence to bait a lethal trap, or use the latter approach to distract from a more quiet flank.
Ironically, I mention all this brutality to vaguely gesture towards the cringe take that video games do not have to be so violent. Obviously, when the world is at your fingertips, the win state does not have to trigger off an integer. There's not much you can do. People just hate math. Lateral options not only skip calcs, but it's just more fun to juggle multiple wins than worry about how many headshots you need to put into the president. Because it only takes one.